the season to be jolly. Beep, 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 beep. Hello! Hey, it's Christmas, isn't it, eh? I hope you'll all be hanging your balls from your trees, pulling your crackers. It's Christmas and we're off. Okay, so this is me signing off for Christmas. Look at my bloody hair. Stay with me this morning. How are we all? All right? So I thought, well, Crimbo coming up, and then we'll have all the reviews of the New Year's, best fart, that kind of thing. All the nonsense. But I thought, well, what am I going to talk about? See, as this is my last broadcast before Christmas, what should we do? Should we moan about everything? Should we talk about how bad things are? Should we talk about what we need to do next year? No, I think we'll leave that to New Year's Eve, or nearer New Year's Eve. So I've been having a mull, right? So let's go for a bit of mulling. Imagine the scenario, right? Me, old man, right? Along with other old men and old women, the women's, right? Okay. Tootling along in our life, okay? Come Christmas, you get a satsuma and some nuts in your stocking, right? If you're lucky, yep. Some sweets, right? A few things, and then, you're really excited because your present is a board game. Or, the magic robot game. Do you remember that, the magic robot? Tell you what the answer to the question was, or something really daft like that, or a train set, God forbid, or Meccano. That's what we used to get excited about when I was a kid, right? And that's what many of you will have got excited about when you were a kid. That's what our Christmas would have been about, right? So that's the world we were in, where the milkman came and delivered the milk, and you had outside toilets, right? That's right, and Grandma ruled the roost. Do you remember those like that? See? So imagine that scenario, right? Now jump forward. Could it be more different? Could it? Kids still get excited about what they're getting, but they don't get the same things. But they live in a different world. When I was sort of like nipperish, 13ish, right? If I thought to myself, somebody mentioned Anne Boleyn. Who the bloody hell was Anne Boleyn? I'd have to get on my bike, go down the local library, ask the librarian, I want to do some work on Anne Boleyn. What have you got on Anne Boleyn? And then they'd get me some history books, and I'd sit there reading for a bit. And I'd get bored and leave and go back on my bike, and go play Knockout Ginger. Or fill up a brown bag with dog shit and light it on somebody's steps so that they'd open the door and then try to stamp out the fire and get shit on their shoes. The kind of things kids did. Kids should still do that, shouldn't they? Right, anyway, no, they shouldn't, right? That's what I'd have to do. Now imagine you're 13 today. You don't know what it's like to live without this little phony thing I'm filming on here. You don't know what it's like to live without the amount of knowledge that we're now provided by the internet. You don't know what it's like to have access to research systems like Grok or any of the other stuff where you can find interesting things that can begin your exploration of a particular topic. Right? So I've got a theory that I thought I'd share with you for Christmas because I think it's quite a nice theory. Up until now, right about now, those of us that were swiped sideways by the internet, and don't pretend you weren't, because you were, right? Know that we get flooded with knowledge and information all the time, constantly. It's like, oh my God, everything. Like when you first get, when we first got social media and got on the phone, it was like beep, 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 beep. It's like a demanding thing that you have to deal with all the time. Don't pretend that didn't knock us off our equilibrium, because it did, right? It did. And then we gradually started to get used to it. We learned to live with it. Then we're using it. Now we're doing video on demand, and you can buy stuff over the internet. And we've got, it's all fast and wonderful now. We've got things where you can send great files to each other. Whereas years ago, that would have taken bloody hours and hours to do. It's quite extraordinary that we're where we are. But we're where we are, and we had to learn to live in that world as it developed. Now imagine again that you're 13 now. You didn't have to. They'll have changes in their life, like we did, but right now, they didn't have to. What's that like? What's it like, do you reckon, for it to be normal? What's it like to be born into a world where you are presented, as soon as you're cognitively able, 12, 13, as soon as you're cognitively able, you are presented with a world in which you live with your family, or with the people who look after you, okay? And then there's huge, enormous repository of knowledge. And you've no idea that ever wasn't there. You have no concept of what it feels like for that to have never been there. What was that like? What was that like? To do that, to be 13 now. Okay? Mull on that. And while you're mulling on that, I think humans are an extraordinary species. I think we're amazing. We adapt. We know we adapt because we're here, right? Because we're here. Through all the stuff that we've done and all the things we do, I'll be bloody kill each other left, right, and centre. We do all sorts of horrible things to each other, as we now know. And now you've got access to all the information about what the horrible things we did to each other were and why we did them and how we can stop doing them in the future. There's your 13-year-old. There's the big blob of knowledge and information that you don't have to go to the library. Right? You don't have to, wander off somewhere to get it. Nor do you have to, for example, as we used to have years ago, mass availability. That'd be the internet would be there. But one family would have a laptop, another wouldn't. The library would have a slow one. That's mass availability. We've gone past that. It's now mass accessibility. In which case, my argument is this, and something for us to mull on, because I think I like it. I think it's a positive view of the future. Is that it is then a natural predilection of that 13-year-old to want to explore that knowledge, to cultivate living in that world, which we don't live in, by the way, living in that world, to contemplate and to be curious enough to want to explore that world. And in doing so, to build into themselves the ability to check facts and ideas, because it won't occur to them to take the headline as read, because their idea of media is not bound by our idea of media, which is years ago, are you watching the news at 10? I'll watch the news at 10. Right, we'll see what's on the news at 10. And we took it for granted that what we were getting was true, and in most cases I imagine it was. It's only recently that's changed. So from their perspective, that kind of curiosity that they like to have may well be becoming built in from an evolutionary psychology point of view, which is that they are learning to adapt and live in the world in which they live and we don't, to remind you again. All right. All of this because I met a warrior teacher. All of this, right? So I'm sat with this warrior teacher and they're having a conversation about their children. And they went up to their child and asked the child a question about something that they thought the child wouldn't know. They asked the question about the Holodomor, which was Stalin's murderous behaviour in his regime in Russia. And the kid, instead of going, what is that, went, what do you want to know? 13. What do you want to know? Already knew. Well, on that, right? As a follow-up to that, I think I've told this story before, but I'm going to tell it again because it ties in with this. You see, I love it when you square a circle, right? So it ties in with this, okay? So two things. First off, mull on the bits I've told you already. Their ability to be curious, their ability to be their own built-in fact checker, and also curious enough to go from multiple sources because it's the natural thing to do now, alongside the fact that they've no idea what it's like to live without this stuff. That's the first two things. Here's the third thing. I was teaching some kids a few years back, right? Only I popped in as a visiting sort of bothering the kids about how to think critically. And one of the people that I was with told the kids that I was a DJ, because I used to do DJing. And I remember the kids saying to me, "You're a DJ, play some music." Oh. I went, right, who told you? So I said to the kids, it's not Ibiza, think 3 middle-aged women, handbags, church hall, baptized baby. Right, that's what it was, right? So I set it all up, the laptop and a couple of speakers, and said, what do you want to hear? And this little voice at the back said, have you got any Joni Mitchell? And I nearly fell off my chair. 13, 14 years old, have you got any Joni Mitchell? I said, how the hell do you know about Joni Mitchell? And he said, it was a he said, oh, I was listening to this by so-and-so. I can't remember who it was. Adele or something, the woman that chases pavements. He said, is it Pavements or Strangers? I can't remember. It's an odd woman. And he said, and it came up at the bottom, if you like this, you're also like this. This was on Spotify or one of those things. The good stuff floats to the top. The good stuff floats to the top. So if those three things tie in, they understand how to live in a world that we have no concept of because they have no concept of the world that we lived in. They become their own little fact checkers and their own little discoverers of knowledge. And they are therefore curious in a way that future generations weren't. And that curiosity will mean that the good stuff will float to the top. That's a message I can get behind. Have a Merry Christmas. I'll see you later.